Hello and welcome to Time Audit Tuesdays, the guest edition with me, your host, Abigail Barnes, and my special guest this week, Michael Sadan. Michael, I am so excited to have you on for this inaugural episode.
Thank you, Abigail. Thanks for having me.
So how this is going to go is Michael has very kindly agreed to share what he has discovered from doing a 7-day time audit as per the recommendations in my book, Time Management for Entrepreneurs and Professionals. So as you're joining us, if you are listening to this live, let us know in the comments where you're joining us from. If you are listening to this on the replay or on the podcast, then obviously you can let us know in the comments of wherever you are listening to this and what you are taking away from it. So this is going to be like a fast-paced, high-speed conversation and episode. So I am going to stop talking now and ask my guest, Michael Sadan, to introduce himself to us. Who is Michael in a nutshell?
Thank you again for having me. Right, nice to meet everyone. I'm Michael. I'm a Londoner. I've spent 15 years working in the corporate world. I worked for News International, a couple of the newspapers there, and the Sunday Times, the Sun, and the Times. I spent 12 years at the Financial Times, working in both London and New York. And my most recent role was at Curio, an award-winning audio news app, a great app for listening to content in the background. And most recently, I decided to found my own company called Consult B2B. And we're a B2B sales and partnerships consultancy, whereby I help out different companies with their B2B sales and partnerships and their go-to-market strategies.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I'm always excited to meet people who have done the jump from the corporate to the entrepreneur world. And especially in this conversation today, we're going to be talking about time. So time looks different when you're in the corporate world to when you're in the entrepreneur world. And you don't realize it until you cross the divide. What I mean by that is you go from managing your time with your tasks in your role to starting a business and being head of everything.
Exactly. I've gone from having the accountability was to the company, the accountability was to your managers or the team that you managed, and then being just accountable just for yourself and just for the company that you own is a challenge. And it's something I'm certainly not an expert at time management. I'm always learning. I'm trying to take on board new tips from those around me, those who know better, those who know me well. And yeah, it's something I'm constantly learning, trying to be as productive and efficient as I can be with my time. I'm certainly one of those people that if you had to put me in a box, I'd be one of those that feel like I'm missing out when I'm sleeping. I like to make the most of my day, do everything I can, sometimes too much. So the time audit that we're going to talk about was an interesting discovery for me.
So let's start at the beginning then. What made you decide that you wanted to be a time audit or to do a time audit?
Fair.
And how did our paths even cross?
Sure. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I post a lot of book recommendations. In the last few years, typically it came after the pandemic or during the pandemic, I decided to read a lot more than I used to. And I love reading at the moment. I keep learning different subjects, different things that are going to help me with self-development. And one of the key subjects I learn a lot about is time management. And most of the books that I read are recommended to me, those that I have in my network, those that I meet on LinkedIn, and your book that I read on a Kindle app because I wanted to read it quickly. I got that recommendation from one of my clients, Chris Schember in New York. And he said, "Oh, Michael, this book would be good for you. I think you're going to enjoy it, especially because I'm juggling multiple clients at the moment. Give it a try." So I read the book, said, "Wow, this is interesting." We connected, and I've done the time audit for a week now.
What has been your biggest revelation from tracking your time for 7 days? Dun, dun, dun.
It was interesting. I think the biggest thing was, okay, I have a lot more time than I think when I break it down into the hours and you get rid of the procrastination time or the the time when you're maybe not being efficient or productive, or you're just in your downtime. And downtime is super important, of course. I think it was the evening times where, okay, I've got a lot more time than I thought if I structure it correctly.
And it goes without saying here, really, that Michael, in sharing this with us, is being so vulnerable in a world where we all like to pretend that we've got it, we can do it, we're perfect. And I love that Michael is one of those learners in life that just wants to make what he's good at even better. And what were you doing with time before you started to track it?
I think with time, when I was working for one company, that your goals are clearly aligned, your progression routes are clearly aligned, and therefore you know in the direction you want to go. So the days can be not easier to plan, but there's certainly, you're walking towards a certain goal for that company. And now running my own company, okay, I've got a lot to do, little time, and I need to get through lots of different things. And now I'm working with multiple clients at the same time, you want to spread your time effectively, and you don't want to spread yourself too thin as well. So that was one of the biggest learnings. And I started doing the time audit by writing down the breakdown of the hours and the days on a piece of paper, but that wasn't good enough for me, because I'm a visual person as well. I like to write things down. We all use the notes apps and etc. And I like to put down stuff on the computer, of course, but I like to write stuff down that I feel it's the best way of revising. It takes me back to studying. So what I did, and I'm going to show you if that's okay, I actually used my whiteboard here to write down my time audit every day. And this is for today. And you probably can't see it with my terrible handwriting, but I've got it breaking down into the morning, which is the morning routine is gym in the morning, gym or swim or run, some kind of fitness. I like to get that done in the morning. I find that gives me the most energy for the day. Then get into the working day, split my time by going through LinkedIn, answering any questions, doing some prospecting or some research, getting back to emails, and then getting into the client work and breaking that down into the 2 or 3 clients that I might be working with at one time. And today, an hour was dedicated to prepping for the interview for the video call. And then the evenings is something I still want to get better at in terms of the free time. What do I do with that time in terms of, do I read, do I study, do I continue working, do I give myself a break? And that's something that's going to be an ongoing learning process for me. But I found it interesting to break down the time, the whole week, by hours, because it was a case of, okay, I do have the time to do this. It's just a case of discipline. And I think discipline is going to be the key thing for any successful founder, and to be able to manage your time effectively.
Thank you for sharing this. And I love that you are chunking your time into different activities and you have a clear reason for that hour. So exercising time. And I saw in your visual whiteboard, and I'm also a visual learner. I think it's a neurodiversity phase these days where we are much more aware that we each all learn in different ways. I love seeing that you made time to eat. You would not believe the number of people who they don't make time to eat, then they don't eat, then they wonder why they burn out. And obviously, running a business, you don't have time to burn out. You cannot afford to burn out because you are the business. Until you get to the stage where you have other people that can do the business for you, you are the business. So your health is a huge priority in all of that. So well done for making the time to actually eat.
I would hope that everyone else would do the same, and I would. Eating is important, but it's funny you said that in terms of health and mindset and being active. So certainly one of life's active people. I feel like I'd be lost if I didn't do some exercise in the day. But what happened this week was interesting. So this is something that was really interesting this week. So I got ill. I caught a cold last week. Just starting to feel better now. But that cold threw off my whole routine, was really frustrating. I was like, okay, no, I can't go to the gym, and I had to cancel a couple of meetings because I was very stuffy and I didn't feel well to go out. I was like, okay, you have to keep going with to the goals. But I think it's so important to be flexible. And you can certainly follow a structure, and I think it's important to have to put some rules in and to put some discipline in terms of what you're going to do for a day. But you definitely have to account for flexibility, unexpected events. It could be positive news that your client comes back and wants to buy more, etc. But you definitely have to factor that into the day. And I think to be a successful leader in any realm is to be able to be adaptable. And that happened to me last week.
What would you say were the biggest revelations from doing the time audit that you've now applied to your career, your business, your life? What changes have you made instantly?
Since becoming a founder?
Since doing your time audit?
Oh, since doing my time audit, sorry. Putting the plan in place for the day. I used to work towards a to-do list as opposed to breaking it down into time segments. And I think putting that time structure in place for the day, whether you do it the night before or in the morning, depending on what's best for you, I think that's important to give you just a little bit of structure and a little bit of a framework to get through the day, and to do the stuff that you know that you need to do in a particular, whatever's most time sensitive. So I think that's the thing I will continue doing, continue to implement, is structuring the day and putting turning that to-do list into a time framework, a time audit.
Fantastic. I love that. So I'm hearing you say you've turned your to-do list into a schedule, which is a great next step. And this is how we take the to-do list to the next step. People often ask me, now I have a to-do list, which looks like a shopping list. What do I do next? It's like you're reading my mind. You take the to-do list and you turn it into the schedule, and then you block it into chunks. So one of the things that Michael and I actually bonded over in our chats on LinkedIn was a brilliant book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, something that I reference and recommend in my book. Obviously, my book, I've read maybe 20 or 30 of the best time management productivity books out there, and then summarized them into the book, which incidentally is 88 pages long. It's short for a reason, and it's chatty for a reason. People who don't have time to read a long book. But anyway, we bonded over Deep Work by Cal Newport from the point that once you know what it is that you need to get done and you put it into the diary, when you can go into that deep work state and enter, I can't pronounce his name, Masiki, I can't even say it. I'm not going to say it. But there's a book by a professor called Flow. You go into the flow state. Maybe you can pronounce his name. But that's another great book as well. It just helps you achieve more with the time that you have.
I couldn't agree more. Deep Work, fascinating book by Cal Newport. I really, really enjoyed that. And I think it goes hand in hand with a time audit. You structure your hours based on what you're going to do in that time bit. But just having the time to do the work isn't enough. It's a case of actually getting to focus, removing the distractions, and doing the work to the best of your ability. And I think the definition of deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. And that is a case of something that I needed to, and I'm still practicing and getting better. Okay, I've got these hours set aside for client one, but my mind's thinking of something else. And I think you can train the mind to focus as much as you can, but it's an ongoing battle. And I think it's especially hard in this day and age with all of the distractions we've got, just with our smartphones and all of the other devices in front of us. But Deep Work was great. Another book that I wanted to reference is I've just finished this, Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. Really interesting book about all the distractions that come your way and how to try to shut out all of those distractions, and notably in notifications from your phone. And this guy went and spent 3 months away from any devices, any screen time, and shut off from the internet for 3 months. And at some point he went crazy. But he did it, and it was a battle, and it was hard. And I'm no way suggesting anyone take 3 months off of the internet or anything like that, because that's going to be difficult. But it's a case of we're all wired to our phones, and just working out how to use the technology for the better. So, for example, what I do, I use the focus settings on the iPhone, set up a profile for work, set up a profile for personal, and that can be only letting in the notification that you think you need for the day, for work. And for example, it could be email, could be Slack, or just calendar notifications. But I think using the technology at disposal is super important. You can do the same with scheduling tools, AI, etc. But it's super important to try to shut out the notifications and the distractions whilst you're working. So highly recommend Deep Work and Stolen Focus as interesting books.
Focus really is going to be one of the skill sets for the next few years in careers. So anybody who's listening to this and is resonating with what Michael's sharing there, how do I focus? How do I get into deep work? I will talk about this more on the Time Management podcast. But thank you, Michael, for bringing it up, because it is a process, and there are strategies, tools, techniques, things that I use and things that obviously Michael does. And with your phone, with your computer, with your setup, with your environment, there's lots of different activities, tools, tips, strategies, and it really is about experimenting. And then the second thing I was going to say is you have to have a desire for, let's call it more. So you want more from your life, you want more from your time. And when you do, that motivates you to investigate, well, if I tried this, what would happen? If I tried that, what would happen? So back to your time audit, what changes have you made for your relationships and your well-being? What did you spot around how much time you were actually giving to your life? So obviously in the book, we talk about the 888 formula, and this all interlinks. We have these 24 hours. What did you discover about your allocation of time to your relationships and to yourself and your well-being?
I think one of the biggest things I discovered is that my time that I give back to other people, say my friends and my family, I don't think it's changed. It's just a lot more structured now. Whereas the problem was, for me, I was always on my phone. If a phone call came in, I'd take it. But from the books that I've read and doing the time audit, I know that's not good for your focus, and the distraction. It takes, I can't remember the specific amount of time, but it takes a long time to get back to focus on what you were doing when you're trying to multitask too much. I think multitasking is important, but you can do it too much, and especially if you're trying to combine work with personal things. So with my relationships with others, I think prioritizing the time to chat to friends, to be present outside of work is something that I think I've learned, as opposed to just doing it sporadically during the day whilst working. I think it's important to set some distinctions. Something else that I found interesting from the time audit, and this was something I learned recently. Two of my clients, Andre of Rado Junkie in London and Devon of Sneaky Clean in Miami, I said to them, I said, guys, whenever I call you, you never answer the phone. What's going on? And they said to me, that's because we've got all of our notifications off only for a certain time, and we'll come back in our time. And I think it's just a case of taking that time ownership, seeing how valuable it is. I mean, you've got the famous phrase, time is money, but it is essentially, especially when you're in charge of your own business. And so learning from how others do it is is a way I learn. So yeah, back to your question in terms of the time audit, I think it's a case of structuring my time for personal activities in a more efficient way, as opposed to just having them mixed in with everything else I do. That certainly is not wasn't an effective way for me, especially the way I think and focus.
That's such a great insight there. When we actually ask people the questions, the answers that come back allow us to then be able to change things and to improve the way that we do it. And they used to say that somebody's email is their problem they're trying to give to you, and somebody's phone call is their problem that they need you to be involved in. So just for clarity, if it's a client and you have committed to the client that you are going to respond, then respond. But if you have a boundary with a client that you will take calls between certain hours, it's your job to manage the boundary. So it's always a fine experimenting, balancing act. But yes, I answer the calls when it's time for me to answer the calls. And surprisingly enough, I think you and I have a similar approach, that we work a lot in airplane mode, which is the easiest way to control the distractions. Your phone is being babysat by the airplane mode, and so then you can just focus on what it is that you need to achieve. So what will this time audit mean for your goals for 2024? What have you got coming up? And now that you are aware of your time, how is that going to impact achieving them?
Hopefully smashing all the goals out the park is the aim. But I think in terms of just being much more efficient, and I think that will be just a key way to just continue building discipline. And the goals are of the new business, of course, is to do the best work for my clients. And I think by being able to manage my time effectively is just going to only help with the output of the work that I do. I think there'll be a clear synergy of the results, of the productivity, of being efficient, and hopefully of the quality work that you produce.
So this is more a question for the podcast, but I am just fascinated by it anyway. You mentioned at the start that partnerships is something that you do in your business. Talk to us about partnerships and how partnerships can actually save you time and make money.
Yeah, sure. Yep. So I work in partnerships. I think working in sales and partnerships, one of the key factors of time is that if a sale comes in or you see some buying signals, you want to automatically drop everything you're doing and get back to that client, that partnership sale to make the deal. And that's again something that's been a challenge through my working life in terms of always being present and ready, but a case of you have to keep the focus and on what you're doing already. So how partnerships can benefit you, I think. So, for example, my last working for Curio, the audio news app, I created a couple of partnerships with major airlines, and you can now listen to Curio in flight, and that's the audio news app I mentioned. And that partnership is great for both parties because it's a whole new offering on the in-flight entertainment section, and it's a whole new channel for the app to be present on and to gain a new client base. But I think so many ways that partnerships can benefit you in terms of I've gone off traffic there.
I'm asking this question because I am similarly, although it is not my main business, but I'm similarly obsessed with seeing if I connect this person to this person and that person to that person, then there's a potential partnership there. I, however, over the years have never monetized it. And so listening to you talking about the fact that this is your business, there's a part of me that's slightly envious, as you know, in another world, in another lifetime, on another timeline, that might actually be something that I would have done, because I can see if I introduce you to you, it will save you time because they have this skill set, you have this product, they have this audience, you have this solution, and together you can save time and make money. I love it.
Sure, no, definitely. And I think in terms of if you are running a business by yourself or you're a small business and or a startup, I think learning from others and outsourcing what you're not good at to someone who's got the skills and the efficiency is going to just help you be more productive and streamline the process, because it's often not worth hiring or paying for something that you can't do, but definitely outsourcing it. You still there?
I'm back, but I muted my mic. Tech challenges. Somebody saying there, synergy. Yes, partnerships are all about finding that synergy. That is for sure. I love it. And I got so excited. I removed myself from the feed just to show I'm real, I'm learning, and this is legit. So, Michael, thank you so, so much for vulnerably sharing your insights and wisdom that you took away from auditing your time. Where is the best place that we can connect with you, find out more, and genuinely enjoy your content?
Sure. Well, I really, really enjoy doing this. I think the best way to get me is always on LinkedIn. You'll see me on LinkedIn a lot, typically talking about different books that I read, sometimes about West Ham if we're doing well. But typically I'll be on LinkedIn talking about different books that I'm learning about. I like to connect that way. It's how I met a lot of different people. It's a great tool for business as well, and just connecting. So hopefully you can catch me on there. Yeah.
And as always, we will share all the links into the show notes. Wherever you are listening to this or watching this, you will be able to find the links to connect with Michael, with myself. And if you have been inspired by this conversation to do your own time audit, there are 3 next steps for you. Step number 1, you can find out how to do a time audit on our website. The link is below, and just look for how to time audit. The second step is buy a copy of my book, Time Management for Entrepreneurs and Professionals. You can buy the PDF version, the physical version. You can buy it on Amazon all around the world. And in there are the steps for how to do your time audit. And then the third step, if you're on the fence, you're not sure, you've listened to Michael, you're like, yeah, I kind of get this, but I don't know, then you can click the link below and download the free chapter of the book and use this as your first step on the road to finding out where all your time is going. So thank you, Michael, so much for your time. I can't believe it's flown by, but it has been amazing to have you on, sharing your time audit updates and insights.
Thank you very much. Loved it. I'm going to keep going with the time audits, and I'll keep learning to be the best I can managing my time.
Until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay well, tune in to the Time Management Podcast, and don't forget, it's your time.
Thank you.